You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
I wake up in the morning and I'm feeling a vibe. Give thanks to the Father, I'm breathing alive.
Culture and Flavor is a podcast about food and culture centered in Black and Indigenous foodways, hosted by myself, Zella Palmer, right here in New Orleans, Louisiana. Each episode features high vibrational conversations with cultural bearers, chefs, farmers, scholars, barbecue pit masters, and more. Where there is flavor, there is history. Join me on Culture and Flavor and all of my guests as we share stories that will have you praise dancing, cooking, conjuring, and inspiring your culinary journey. Welcome to another episode of Culture and Flavor with your host, Zella Palmer. Y'all, I am so excited. I know that's my favorite saying on a lot of my episodes, but I am. Where do I even start? So I invited mischief maker Kudzai Bingepinge back to Culture and Flavor. He was our guest on last season. He is a chef, owner, restaurateur of King's Kraal in Johannesburg, South Africa, Bulawayo. You see, I pronounced it correctly.
You got it.
In Zimbabwe, and he is the co-founder of the artisanal salt. I still tried it. Noom. Okay, I click. I gotta get my click, and that is now on Oprah's list. I think it is, if I'm not mistaken, or it's coming to a city near you. That's all I know. He was just in Atlanta. And we are going to reflect on this episode and have a really wonderful, amazing conversation that is going to take you on a journey where we, as he says so profoundly, we traverse the continent. So I'm so excited to just have this conversation with Kudzai Bingepinge.
Yes, I think you've got the spot on. You've got Bingepinge right. You've got Bulawayo right. Moom, we can work on a few more times. I'll send you a few more jars of the new ones that we're working on. But great to be back, Zella. It's such a special time, and I'm really looking forward to chatting.
Sawubona.
Hey.
So I want to start this conversation to just kind of get our listeners to understand the magnitude of this journey that we all went on together. And I'm just going to paint a picture for you all. And then we're just going to start the conversation and just reflect on this monumental trip. So October 2024. The end of October 2024, I hopped on a plane. No, first of all, back when I met Kudzai, he said, you have to come to Southern Africa. You have to come to South Africa and you have to come to my homeland of Zimbabwe. I said, bet, I'm there. So I booked the ticket. He had the whole trip planned out, organized, had all of his friends on board. I was over the top. So first, I landed in Johannesburg. He picked me up. We went to King's Kraal, which is one of his restaurants in Johannesburg. It reminded me so much of Dewdrop Inn in New Orleans, the music, the food. It was such an honor to be there, and I felt like I was at home. Then the next morning, we hopped on a plane to his hometown in Bulawayo, Zimbabwe. We met up with his friends, Prince, who has a wonderful YouTube channel called Magrizi Made Me Cook, and Arnold, an historian that I learned so much about Zimbabwe and the cultural region. Then we went to Matobo National Park. We visited the caves to look at some of the oldest paintings of human beings from the San people. And Prince's knowledge of medicinal plants and their usage for spirituality had me processing a lot and making connections with with what cultural memory remained back home. Even the indigenous snuff reminded me of rape that I tried from the Shipipa tribe in Peru. And the African sage that we foraged remind me a lot of how sacred sage is in Native American culture, and it is a gift to be traded, never to be bought. And so I cherish the sage that my new relatives in Southern Africa gave me on that trip. Then we went to the Kami Ruins, a World Heritage Site. I was amazed at looking at the patterns on the ruins and the chevron patterns that reminded me of even gold chains that we love so much, and diamonds and all the jewelry that we adorn ourselves. Juxtaposed at the same time, when we went on top, there was this cross that was, on top of the mountain, and thinking about colonization and Cecil Rhodes, which we will get into more detail as this conversation goes on. And then also seeing offerings to ancestors from present day, um, you know, folks who live in the region who are now kind of seems like they're embracing and awakening to reclaiming their heritage and spirituality. Touching the evergreen tree was monumental for me. And we talked a long time about invasive plants brought to Africa during colonization, such as maize or corn, that is drying up much of the land in Southern Africa and Africa in general, and the eucalyptus tree that had me later thinking about the California fires and how the eucalyptus tree was part of the spread of that fire. And at the caves, we talked about antelope or eland and how San people told stories about this indigenous animal, reminded me of the African fables and stories my dad used to read to me when I was a little girl. We foraged for wild thyme and visit a local village to negotiate with an elder to purchase some guinea fowl, an African bird introduced to Europe in the 15th century during the Middle Passage. And it had me thinking also about the guinea gold coin that Britain took from Africa. The gold was taken from Africa and then would become the coin and is now worth tens of thousands of pounds today. Kudzai then prepared a meal for us by the water, yellow melon with seeds, because I love to see a melon with seeds, sorghum beer, barbecued guinea, and there was this monkey that just was sitting there stoically, ready to mess up, to mash up our food. So it was an amazing experience. Then we went on to Cecil Rhodes' gravesite, the most visited in Zim, which also had me thinking about how do we honor our ancestors? Do we go to colonial sites or do we go to the ancestral sites of the people that we came from? And then it also had me thinking about colonial sites of commemoration. How are their stories told? Juxtaposed with the beauty and the indigenous land that is around them. Because, of course, Cecil Rhodes was on the highest point of Matopos. We drove to, I don't know how, I can't remember how many hours, but it was the most fabulous trip. And then we ended up in Victoria Falls. But on the way, we had conversations that I will always cherish. We stopped on the way to visit an elder so she could show us the multi-purpose usage of millet, and had a rehydrated meal of okra leaves. And millet had me thinking about the grain, the ancestral grain from Africa that was brought on slave ships to feed my ancestors who were in bondage. So it was a full circle moment. And then on the way, we saw countless baobab trees, and we saw water buffalo and baobab trees that ain't one of the most ancient trees. And I just had to stop and take it in. And Kudzai was able to film me. And here I am hugging trees like the hippies of the past. And then we ended up in Victoria Falls and the mighty, mighty, mighty waterfalls of Victoria Falls, a World Heritage Site. And of course, Kudzai being Kudzai said, no, we're going to film and we're going down the Zambezi River and we're going to have a conversation and we're going to film. Of course, I was tongue tied. So finally now I have my words written down, thought about, processed, so I could fully process this amazing trip that we went on. And I couldn't help but think about Langston Hughes and many rivers to cross and how grateful I am to my ancestors for them have crossing not only rivers, but oceans. And here I am in New Orleans next to the mighty Mississippi, but I have seen the Amazon River, and now I can say that I have traversed down the Zambezi River. And it didn't end there, because I cultivated a trip of a lifetime for me that took me to Johannesburg, Zimbabwe, Cape Town, and along the way, I met many of his friends. And you will hear from many of them in this season. So welcome, my friend.
My goodness. I don't, that was a whole expedition. It's you forget just all the various points that we went to. And as you were recounting it, I was like, and we managed that in how many days? Was that 3-4 days or something like that? Yeah.
Crazy, crazy. I mean, it was amazing. And so before I came, what were you thinking? What did you want to like, what were you trying to show me and get me to understand? I'm curious. Because you took a lot of time to really map that out. That was a whole movie.
Zella, I didn't approach it with any intent other than to give you an opportunity to experience and be spoken to
Mm,
by that space.
mm,
And I honestly didn't know what would come of it,
mhm,
and how the interaction, the exploration of this special region of Africa would resonate. I think for me, it was just the first time I've had someone come on an adventure like this with me. I do it at least once a year, once or twice a year, across the region in search of ingredients, trying to learn something about culture, et cetera, et cetera. But I felt like this was a great way for us to start this because, um, David Livingstone, who would have been the explorer that came across Victoria Falls or Mosiatunya, he wouldn't have made it into the the interior without guides. And quite often, a lot of those guides were not uh, are not remembered, if you will. So this is almost, as I explore Africa, as part of trying to retrace steps and have a look at this beautiful continent with the same eyes that they may have had, and to try
mm,
and reveal it and tell a story and share the story with folk who are interested to hear and see the story. But as their guide as well too. So that's all I did. And what came of it, we are still to have a long conversation about what you took from it. So I don't know.
But
But all
now
I
it's
know,
my turn. Now it's
now it's
my
your turn.
turn to ask
It's
you because you always are asking me, so now it's my turn. So I want your reflections just on the trip. So let's
yeah,
start with Matobo National Park or just Bulawayo in general. Talk about
yeah.
where you're from.
Well, I'm from Bulawayo, born and raised in Bulawayo. And I have to say a big thanks as well to Prince Arnold and Zozo for putting
Mhm.
the Zim leg together, because without those gents, it's just logistically a nightmare to do. But they get it. We've worked together quite a bit, and they're my brothers from Bulawayo as well too.
Mhm.
So it was really nice to link up with them again and have them share, because I think they know way more than I could ever even share. So it was really, really great to spend a few days with them. But I'm originally from Bulawayo, and moved. Well, I guess left there in about 2002 to go to university in Canada. Spent some years there before moving to Switzerland, and then full circle to Zambia, where
Mm.
I am now. So I like to call it taking the cold route back home,
Mm.
and over a few mountains and then back. So I'll cross the river soon enough.
Mm.
But for me, yeah, that's where I'm from. This is where I'm at right now.
So talk to us about just your people. And, I was so touched that you gave me a gift and you said, this is the pattern from my tribe, and I want you to have that. And I want you to kind of talk about just the San people. Before we even mention Cecil Rhodes, let's talk about the indigenous people of the land.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the region is very, very storied, right? And I don't even think I could scratch the surface in a conversation and more. But it's safe to say that the first people would be the Khoisan, who populated the area, and I guess, I wouldn't say guess, but have been around the southern African region, all the way from Angola, Namibia, Botswana, South Africa, Zimbabwe, and even all the way out to Malawi and Mozambique in some areas were there. So they've been there from time, if you will. And then, of course, with the Bantu migration, you had folks moving from West Africa out towards Cameroon, from about Cameroon areas there, and migrating east, of course, out towards Kenya, Tanzania, and then, of course, working their way down to the south as well. So it's a meeting place. But the beautiful thing about Matopos as our starting, our origination point of our adventure is that it's also a very sacred place. Probably one of the most sacred places in Southern Africa. If you look at the spiritual significance of it, this is where you have the shrine, Njelele Shrine, which is a rainmaking, where a lot of for rainmaking take place, and people come from far and wide for this. But it's also a place of I guess we'll say the epicenter of our own colonial history as well too. So from going from the San and then the Bantu, which includes the Shona or Karanga and then Ndebele, who all came together and also now populating what we now call Zimbabwe as well. But it's also the epicenter of our colonial story, in the sense that Cecil Rhodes is buried at Malindi Nzima, one of the most sacred spots in the Matopo. So it's a complex place, but a special place nonetheless, and a place that I like to go to every so often when needing to recenter and ensure that I'm aligned with path and purpose, if you will. I've said a lot, but hopefully enough.
No, absolutely. And, I remember us foraging some of, the herbs, and because you surprised me, you surprised me because we're like, oh, we're going to cook off the land. And I'm like, wow, who is this man, And I just want you to talk about some of the, the animals in the area, as well as the, the herbs that are that are indigenous to that land and that are also have a multi-purpose usage.
Yeah, sure. So again, Matobo National Park is I mean, it's dense with animal life. In terms of one of the, I guess I'd like to call it fun facts, right? It probably has the highest density of leopards in the region. And the rock formations themselves are over 200 million years old. So it's a place that's just transcends anything that we could imagine. And so when we look at the flora and fauna there's just a diversity of it. And I'm on a mission. I just haven't had the time, of course, to try and capture and document and experiment with with what I can find from that region as well. But the two that I think that I would be an interesting one to talk about would be the lavender fever berry, which is what we used when we cooked the guinea fowl. It's a very aromatic herb, quite often used in perfumes and the like, but it grows quite freely out there. Then you also have, and I think you might remember this one, the resurrection bush. So now this is a bush that grows on the hills, these barren hills. They just pop up there. But the beauty of it is how they appear dead, but with a little water they always regenerate. So this resurrection bush, in terms of it, is a really cool plant or herb you find there. We didn't cook with it, but it has properties that allow it's actually used in some seasonings as well too. We just didn't collect anything, but that has a very almost thymy kind of aroma and taste to it as well too. So that's an interesting one. But the one that I'm also quite keen, and I plug it because I'm going to send it to you when it's good to go.
Yay!
Is the Javanica, or in the region called Zumbani. Now this is very aromatic. It's beautiful. It's often used as teas. Actually, during COVID, a lot of people used it drank the tea to I guess as they navigated COVID. But it has this beautiful lemon verbena
Mm.
kind of taste. And in the new lineup of our Noom salts, where we're going to be doing a blend that will include those. So I'm going to send you that, and you can tell me what you think
I
about it. But
can't
it will
wait.
also be a factor of matopos as well.
I can't wait. I can't wait. Um, and then, I remember us standing by the caves and just having a moment, just looking at these paintings that were, millions of years old. It just blew my mind. And what were some of the things that I know it was a while ago, but every time you go there, what do you think of, and what do you walk away with in your mind?
Well, I think for me the rock art has been a little bit of a journey for me, right? I initially growing up took a lot of the images there to just represent animals and people hunting and whatnot.
Hmm.
But as I've gotten to learn a lot more about the San and their really strong sort of spiritual connections, I've come to learn that some of that art doesn't necessarily represent the animals, but more it has a much more spiritual bent, more connection to different planes of consciousness, if you will. And I mean, I think in the last interview, I explained the meaning behind the name Ngum. Ngum itself means potent healing energy, and it's a state of mind that's achieved by the San through ritual dance. That takes them, let's say, I guess, for lack of a better term, where they do connect with those deeper parts of themselves for healing within the community, within people, essentially within the community where there's people that are ill and that kind of thing. They get into this trance through this trance dance, this state of Noom that creates this potent healing energy.
Mm.
And you would also see images of the eland, or the kudu. Kudu is maybe more prevalent in the region that we were in. The eland is normally you'll find out in towards Botswana, South Africa areas, more populous there. But the eland is the largest antelope, and it is also the one that the San see as the most potent. So when a young lad comes of age, he has to go out and hunt for this and bring back the fat, and that has moon. It has this potent energy. Similarly, when a young lady has her first cycle, there's a process that takes place that involves this eland. In the region that we're in, it probably would have been the kudu. Again, the second largest, but this is the one that jumps really high. I think it's one of it jumps the highest, the antelopes with the highest leap, if you will. But you see them all over the place. And these images sometimes are mistaken to just mean the animals, yet actually they would have been interpreted as messengers
Mm.
for the story. So the more I learn, the more I go there, the more I speak with friends, Prince and them, and everyone else within the research space there, the more you see that actually a lot of things may appear the way we want them to see, but it's important for us to pay attention and to understand who's the one that painted it. And it's all over the place in Matopos, and such a beautiful experience.
And
I,
then
I don't know if I answered the question. I
no,
got
you
carried
did,
away
you
again.
did, you
Yeah.
did. I mean, it's I want our listeners and just to take in a moment and just try to put the movie in your mind, as I used to tell my students back in the day, put the movie in your mind and actually see this. And I hope you actually, look online just to see these historical sites, because Southern Africa, the entire region is profoundly spiritual as well as grounding. I can't, so many words that I have that to describe just the feeling of being on that land. It moved me, and I thought about it for months, and kept me up at night just reflecting on everything that I saw,
Yes.
everything I learned, and just even the community that you have established there, of amazing, human beings that I have some of the most amazing humans I've ever met in life. And I want to thank you for that. I really, really want to thank you for that. That was an incredible trip.
Wow. The pleasure was all ours, and I'm so glad you enjoyed it. You never know, right? Like you just move forward, and that's always been my approach. Just move with heart, and with and let that guide, right? And all the interactions I've had, all the folks that you met in Cape Town and whatnot, it's purely because of just being guided by heart and a desire to help us remember. I think that really is maybe the one line that would say that describes everything. I try, and with my partners and everything, try to do is do the work that helps us remember that which courses within our veins. Of these ancient empires that showed ingenuity, innovation, resilience, and strength, the ability to project, that which was imagined and put it in rock, to the point where historians such as I think it was Karl Malk, when he first came across Great Zimbabwe, refused to accept that this was a place built by Black people, right? And yet it was. And Kami, of course, is the second city. There's over 200 of these stone structures, but that's a place that I'd like to go back to and just see the grandeur of what our ancestors did at the time. And it leaves me in anyone who goes there can't not come away with that view that, well, why can I not do what it is that I aspire for? It's there. It's been there for a long time. So yes, it is about trying to help people remember. And I'm so glad that you're able to come. And I'm going to bug you. You're going to have to use your words one day and tell me. But even if not, as long as
I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue to process, and you were going to invite me back because I need to go back there because it was amazing. And I mean, talking about ancient civilizations, Great Zimbabwe, I would love for us to kind of talk about the Kami ruins. And I've been to many pyramids now, especially in Mexico, because I used to live there when I was a little girl, and my dad loved to go to the pyramids in Mexico while we were there. And the Kami ruins and just the intricate details, the chevron patterns, the different patterns that were on those ruins, and to go up the stone, pathway to get to the top and to see, the evergreen trees, the other trees that are indigenous to that land, and to look over just as far as the eye could see. And then, we walked through another part where there were offerings, spiritual offerings from people who live in that area that were obviously giving up offerings. And I'm sure at one time that was, taboo, and the colonial, the colonial folks that were there, made sure that they dissuaded them and try to bring Christianity, all these things. And then you go to the right, and then there's this huge cross embedded in this ancestral ruin. And it just makes you just, think about what was stolen, what was forced down indigenous, folks of that region, tribes of that region, down their throat, and I would love for you just to talk about a little bit about the civilization, the ancient civilization of Great Zimbabwe.
I, okay, cool. Because I've bookmarked another thing I wanted to touch on as well, too, around this the imposition of like the effects of colonialism, but in a different angle, to say that resistance can appear in different forms. But I'll touch on that later. I mean, Great Zimbabwe, I think, is the second largest ruins you'll find after the pyramids. We didn't get a chance to go all the way out there, but this is where Zimbabwe itself takes its name from. It means houses of stone. And as I said earlier on, there's over 200 of these that populate the country, and actually also probably way out into the east, because there was a point in time when the Great Zimbabwe Empire stretched as far as Sofala out in Mozambique as well too. So a big trading network. This area was populated by the Rhodri and the Mutapa kingdom, Monomotapa kingdom, whatnot. So this is the Karanga folks who are now, I guess, grouped or called the Shona, would have populated that place. And of course, it was very economically powerful region, trading in gold and ivory. And it's certainly, I guess it was the second, what we say, the second not civilization, empire or structure after Mapungubwe, which is in South Africa. So you're starting to see thought and trade and bringing people together, these regal places, these very powerful places that populated this area. And of course, after a little bit of civil war and disagreement, the Torah, which is the Kami, where we went, this is where the area that was populated by them. But there's so many interlinks to it, and as I was reading up into it, I laughed, because I came to understand that in the Kami area, that state also had quite a bit of control out into Botswana and the Kalahari, where the salts that I've been playing around with actually would be sourced from. So I found it as a full circle, interesting sort of moment to see the salt that we've been carrying around sitting in a place where someone might have directed the traffic of that for a while. But I wanted to also speak a little bit about resistance. And you mentioned the rituals that were taking place. I think it was actually in the royal chamber that we saw the thing. In time, it's one thing I've come to realize, and one thing as I explored the continent this way, you realize that spirit never dies, right? And the idea of resistance doesn't need to always be overt. Sometimes it's a long-term thing, and people still know where to go. People still know how to revert back to what or who they are and what they do in order to make their way through. It's the reason why I would, speculate that it was okay for Cecil Rhodes to be buried where he was. In as much as it's troubling and problematic, I think there's some wise people that destroy the spirit. This doesn't destroy who we are. It's just placed there. But the space is superior. The area, the idea of who we are and what this place represents far exceeds anything that is being done there. And so when we see it starting to come, yes, there were points when it was, of course, looked at as black magic, and even now it's still not necessarily fully embraced. But people do know where to and how to connect. It's just a question of remembering whether or not they want to do so. And I think in Southern Africa, we still have a lot of conversations to have around what does this mean versus religion, the conventional religions that we have. But I do believe that spirit can't be destroyed. And that's been the spirit of resistance that helped us take back our land in the end and reclaim what is our destiny. Anyways, I ramble.
No, you don't ramble. It makes perfect sense. And, I love that you talked about resistance, because as we left the Kami ruins, I remember, hearing drums, the sound of drums from afar. And I said, what is that? And they said, oh, that's the Rasta community.
Yeah.
that drum.
Oh, by the kami. Yeah.
Yes. And and I just remember, like, as a child, seeing footage of Bob Marley, singing Zimbabwe, going to Africa during the resistance movements of that time. And here is one of the largest Rasta communities in Africa. And I said, and it's all of these kind of moments that you have as you travel, where you're seeing you know a reclaiming, a remembering. And as Chef Noni, who will be in a later episode of Culture and Flavor, and you are on that same path of alignment. It is remembering, it is a sense of resistance and reclaiming. And so when we come back, we're going to come back after a few messages from our advertisers, and you all can hear more about Kudzai and our journey to traverse the continent, the southern part of Africa.
This episode is brought to you by Wisconsin Cheese. Wisconsin, the state of cheese, makes half of the nation's specialty cheese and wins more awards than any other state or country. Our heritage and traditions, master cheesemaker program, and the American propensity for innovation all put Wisconsin on the cutting wedge of cheesemaking. With over 600 varieties of cheese to choose from and 5,500 national and international awards and counting, get ready to turn your refrigerator into a trophy case. Enjoying a Wisconsin cheese is basically like winning a gold medal in culinary achievement. Set your mind at cheese. When you bite into a wedge of Wisconsin Wonderful, you know it is made with the ultimate skill and passion possible. Find your next favorite cheese at wisconsincheese.com.
All right, we're back. So I want to go on to where we went next. After we left the Kami ruins, we visited the gravesite of Cecil Rhodes. You talked a little bit about that. And that is one of the most visited sites, World Heritage sites in the region. And here is Cecil Rhodes' tomb, and his comrades' tomb. And they are, encased in marble, and, it's right on the top of the mountain. And, when you look over that mountain, there's a certain peace to that mountain. But yet at the same time, this marker, this gravesite, seems so foreign and so evasive to the flora and fauna that you see around. It's literally a European, something that you would see like in Washington D.C. on a monument mall at the, the cemeteries of honored individuals. It just looks foreign, instead of. And I want to kind of talk about just not spiritual practices, but burial practices in that region, juxtaposed with having this Cecil Rhodes, gravesite.
At a place known as Malindinzimu. And this is a very sacred place as well, too. If you saw the rocks kind of thing, there's this certain foreboding about this. You feel like this is a place that has some sort of significance that folks would have had that we would have connected a lot more with our ancestors in that space. As far as the burial practices there go, I wouldn't know enough to speak and do it justice on it. I'm going to pass that ball over to Prince, who can give that to you.
So when he listens to this and I send him this podcast, Prince, you're coming for an episode. We're going to sit down and chat.
Yes, he's going to take that one forward.
Yes. And I encourage our listeners to listen, to watch and subscribe to his YouTube channel. You can learn a lot. It's Magriza Made Me Cook. He's an incredible, just young, Zimbabwean that is doing incredible work with trying to document and preserve regional cuisine and the elders that make it. I mean, it is a phenomenal series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's special. we actually, that's how we met. I stumbled across his channel, and I was like, this is absolutely amazing, you know. And I think the way what I really value about what they do is that they're not surface level about it, right? They want to connect everything associated with the foodways in a way that hasn't been told um, with that kind of flavor. I had to throw that in there. But also, you know, it leaves you nourished in more ways than one. So it's special folks, and I think it would be. I mean, I think I look forward to seeing what other adventures they get up to. I think they're going to expand quite a bit around the region as well.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And then the next morning we woke up and we drove to Victoria Falls. You rented a Jeep and we all packed into the Jeep and we laughed, we played music, you know, we stopped at many baobab trees. I made you stop at many baobab trees. My mouth was just on the floor, you know, and I would love for you, you know, to talk about baobab trees because you know, here in the States, when I think about North Carolina in general, just me going to North Carolina and even just here in Louisiana, you know, the oak trees, um, you know, the lushness of it, you know, and the meaning, the spiritual meaning of it, as well as going to North Carolina and seeing these tall pine trees, you know. I would love for you to talk about the baobab tree and the importance of it to the region and to Africa.
Wow. Yeah, no, this is a very special tree. I think also commonly known as the upside down tree. It is, I think it is probably the closest representation to describing the concept of as above, so below, just because of the way it looks. You know, it's one of those trees that's been around for millennia. I think if you look at they're populated around most of Africa, but Southern Africa has quite a huge number of them, and as well to out in Madagascar. But the tree itself is a tree of life, and also in some cultures, historically, was a tree where royalty would be interred. I wouldn't say buried, right, but placed within this huge trunk. If it was a hollow trunk, you place them in there. You would normally find it in slightly drier areas of the region, mainly because I guess it's one of the hardiest, more resilient trees you'll find. Some of them are over 2,000 years old. And I read somewhere that it looks like, you know, some of them are actually coming to the end of their life now. So it becomes even more important to treasure them and celebrate them. I remember growing up, going home to my rural areas, which would be up in the eastern part of Zimbabwe, in Chipinge, Save areas, is Baobab Alley. There's quite a number of these. And we would be going on long walks, whether it was herding cattle or something along those lines, or I'd been sent with my cousins to another area. And when we got thirsty, we'd just chop off a little bit of the bark and chew it. And there was more than enough. There was more than enough moisture or water to satisfy and get us through to a journey there, and get us through the journey. But it also is. It also, you know, produces the baobab fruit, which I think now has become a superfood because of its high concentration in vitamin C, and also. I think now most folks are starting to play around with the baobab coffee, which you'll see with Moon in a few seasons. Yeah, we're up to mischief. We're up to mischief, as I say. There's more mischief. So it's not just about salt. Moon is about just bringing and celebrating and adding to the pantry of the world something from the region. So of course we started with salt, but coffee. Baobab coffee will be something that we'll be looking at bringing to the pantry as well. But we used to take the powder, the fruit, and it tastes a little bit like, for those who may not have tasted it, uh, tartar. So when you have the fish and chips, that's that dip. It has that tangy kind of taste to it. And we used to take that and mix that powder with milk, and in some instances a bit of honey to make this smoothie milkshake known as mtanda water. And I mean that was it's I mean it's again like a milkshake or smoothie or whatnot, but very, very flavorful and just natural to consume. So this is something that we play around with. I think at King's Kraal we've offered it in when we're up to mischief during some of our private curated events. We will offer it in that in that format there. But yeah, that's the baobab tree. Really, I could go on about it, but I think it's one that just signifies again that resilience. When I look at that tree, I see how much it sustains the land and the people around it, and how much it has also formed a part of people's lives, especially when we look at the interring of royals historically in there as well.
And as we were, passing the baobab trees, we took pictures, and then, we stopped at a local elder's home that Prince knew. And you and I talked a lot about, colonial plants that are invasive and drying up the land, particularly maize and that version of maize, because, when you and I were talking, I was talking about the genetically modified versions of corn, not the indigenous corns that, are native to the Americas, that have, there's a version that is being, sent out to the rest of the world to grow. And she took us through the process of, the multi-purpose usage of millet. And for me, that was mind blowing to me. I mean, I've seen it, but not like I've seen the process, but not like how she did it. And then the rehydration of okra leaves, that just blew my mind. That blew my mind. And, I would love for you just to talk about the variety of millet in that region and some of your favorite grains that you like to use as a chef. And, just let everybody know about rehydrated okra leaves.
Zella, I still think about that dish you made a lot. The rehydrated okra leaves. There was just something about the process, but also just how little else she needed to put into that dish for us, and how quick it was. A little bit of water, a little bit of ash, and the okra leaves, and stirred it up. And I think I had seconds or thirds with it, but really, really, that was just it was a special dish, a very simple dish, but just really highlighted how much flavor is there for us to explore from an innovation perspective as chefs in the region. We don't have to go far. The luxury is already there. We just have to understand the techniques a little bit more. But on the millets and on the grains, finger millet and pearl millet, I think was what we would find out in the Hwange region. One of the main grains that would have been cultivated before the arrival of maize. But of course, if you look at the size of them, then they're not as easy to harvest as maize would be. And so as time went on and population density increased, the easier grain is the one that took precedence, if you will. And then there's sorghum as well too, which is another one that I love to work with. I'm not sure if you managed to try it over at King's Kraal. You did, eh? Okay, so this would have been a lamb dish with sorghum and honeybush, balsamic, and morojo, which would be like a kale gel. that we put together or whatnot. So if you tried that one, I'm happy you did. But yes, so it's just such a special thing to watch Umama there just putting together, sort of grinding up the millet and making this shake for us as well too. This energy drink, which just add a touch of sugar, and that's all you need. And I remember that was enough to get us through to Vic Falls and go on an adventure as well too. So there's lots to explore there, and I don't think we've finished. I think quite a lot understand the fermentation of it, but there's many ways for us to work with this the super grain. And please go ahead.
Indeed. No, indeed. I'm just thinking about fonio and
yes,
and pearl millet. I mean, we could go on, and we don't know enough. In this,
No.
from at least I can speak for the U.S. We don't know enough. I mean, we'll see Whole Foods and we'll see a little bag of teff or pearl millet, but and quinoa, and then most folks don't even know how to cook quinoa properly.
Yeah.
And I think you doing this work, Prince doing this work is so needed, is so needed right now. And you all documenting this and having conversations, because if we don't, once again, it will go to the grave. And I remember us, even just talking to her and the elder, the house that we went to, and she was talking about her daughter, and she's left for the city, and and that those traditions are not going to be passed down in her family, most likely. Hopefully she'll come back and learn, but the need to make money, and to move out and go outside of the village is real. That's in every culture, right? But then we also, what do we leave behind? And then we have to go through a whole process of remembering. And sometimes it doesn't happen until the next generation,
Yeah. No, it's true. It's I mean, as they say, there's always a price to pay, right? Sometimes we never really know or understand the true value of that price that we pay. I'm fortunate enough to have had the privilege to leave and be able to come back and reconnect with these traditions, my food ingredients, and to be able to explore and try to document and capture this. This is something that I'm sure many yearn for when they move out into the diaspora or into the cities, but don't have the ability to do so. So I consider it an honor and a privilege to be able to do to get up to the kind of mischief that we did. It's not an everyday thing, but it's hopefully something that might help someone one day, help them come to understand, or at least give them some idea of how they could start to explore and remember that part of themselves, which they had to leave because of economics or other reasons, which is fair, and it happens.
And then we zipped on our way to Victoria Falls. We left her home, and we had a funny inside joke that I want to share with y'all. The entrepreneurial spirit of young people in that region. If you remember the potholes, and it made me think of New Orleans potholes. Literally, I just saw somebody have a wedding right here in New Orleans at a pothole. So a pothole is sacred. It's like, you just have to accept it. And here they are, these young people on the road, and they are, taking gravel and filling up the gravel as we're driving, and they're asking for money, but then they take the gravel out. So at night you are screwed. You're going to end up in a deep hole and say, no thing, let's forget about it. So drive in the day, to say the least. And I would love for you just to talk about the next generation and how you see young people. I mean, even just thinking about Prince and, those who are interested and us finding each other and being able to have these conversations now.
I'm so chuckling. You can't knock the hustle. Zella. Like they you can't knock it. The young fellows, they're enterprising. They've seen a literal gap in the path to where you're going, and are providing you with a solution. And it's up to you to keep that solution in place
Oh man.
with the gravel. But yeah, no, can't knock them. Look, I mean, I think it's I in terms of thinking of the next generation, I feel like we are in a place where the next generation is more comfortable, or getting more comfortable with who they are and their identity. I mean, I might be wrong, right? But if I look at my own experience, shortly after, I'm probably one of the first generation post-independence that went through school, etc. and whatnot. There was a point in my life where I couldn't wait to leave the country, and speaking English was the thing. You needed to you wanted to almost separate yourself from that which was, for lack of a better term, um, um, it looked like you needed to be refined to be seen seriously. I like what's happening now where folks are speaking in more freely in their language, happy to explore their spirituality as freely. They can decide now, whereas before I don't think it wasn't. It was there. They can decide. But as well too, I think there's it's not going to be everyone. Um, so I think for me, it's just more you seeing a little bit more comfort in exploring exploring, accepting, and moving freely as children of the continent. The economics will still be a challenge, and that's probably the thing that will forces many to leave home. But I think the part that I'm encouraged by is that they probably would keep that part of who they are. They're not going to have to really rediscover this, which is something that a lot of us are trying to do now. And I do these things as well too for my son. He's 12. Spent a good chunk of time in Canada. One day we'll start to ask questions, and I see just this, sharing this part of my journey, trying to document it, put it all together as something that will help him maybe one day pick it up and say, I'm going to go off and try and learn a little bit more about who I am and be proud of that. That's always going to be up to him, but it's my job to at least give him a starting point to say, why don't you try here? And then the rest is his journey. And I think this is what my hope is for the next generation, that they at least have a starting point that isn't where we started. And they can build on that themselves.
There are so many elements, natural elements to Southern Africa, but where we ended our trip was at Victoria Falls. And I thought a lot about as I watched just the force of nature and the gravity of these, ferocious falls that, were just crashing into the ground. And we just stood there and just took it all in. How sacred water, is, and how water is life, um, and how sacred rivers are to bring us together, and just the water in our culture, and as you know, people of African descent or Africans on the continent. And I would love to just, why did you decide to end that trip at Victoria Falls and wanting me to see that, or what does Victoria Falls mean to you?
Mm.
And the Zambezi River. I'll put that out there too. And the Zambezi River, because we were just
Yes.
floating, and that was the highlight, the beginning of our day. We had woke up like at 3:00 or 4:00 in the morning. And and our guide, he was he was so knowledgeable, and he was part of the, short film that Prince made about us that, I was tongue tied on, and just, I was still processing everything. I'm like, wait, what? I'm in a film? I would love for you to talk about just the Zambezi River and Victoria Falls. A lot of people go to
Yeah.
Victoria Falls. A lot of people go to Victoria Falls, and a lot of people have crossed the Zambezi River.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Zambezi River is the fourth largest river in Africa. I think it's the Nile first, the Congo second, Niger, and then the Zambezi. I might have mixed up Congo and Niger, but anyways, it's number 4. And for me, I mean, it crosses how many countries? Zambia, Angola, Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, bordering through Malawi, and then Mozambique. Actually, not Malawi, just into Mozambique. So it cuts across. It cuts across the entire Southern Africa. But for me, it was important for us to go there after we had gone to the other sites, so you can see something that's naturally powerful, representative of the power that is this continent, right? You look at the Victoria Falls, how majestic they are, and how they've probably been doing this the water's been flowing for millennia.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, I think for me, it is a space for me that is very real. I feel very connected to it, but I feel very connected to it as a person, sort of spiritually as well, but also in the metaphor that the river represents for me, right? So it starts off, and what it represents is the power of a small idea that takes its time to grow into something significant. The source of the Zambezi is somewhere here in Zambia, an area called Mwinilunga. At least this is the one they say is the source, but there's other ideas that it isn't. But it starts off as a little bubbling brook coming out of the ground. Nothing to write home about. You could never pay much attention to it. But as it moves, it grows into a calm stream, and then before you know it, it's moving into something that evolves into rapids, and then this waterfall, and then a calm pool up in Mana Pools, and it continues all the way out into the Indian Ocean. And for me, Zella, this is what we are trying to do as a people, is small ideas given their time to follow their course can turn into really big, momentous things that are undeniable. And that's what that was probably the final message I would say, I would hope would have resonated when we were chatting about it, and as we walked around, is that this is something small and innocuous, given its time and the opportunity to follow the course it's supposed to, can turn into something truly remarkable, undeniable, and irresistible as well too. I would hope that we as a people, and anyone who experiences that, gets that message. If not, go bungee jumping and enjoy that too. There's plenty of the thing. Or whitewater rafting or something. But that was that. And for me, the Zambezi as well too. I mean, bordering Zambia and Zimbabwe is it's a beautiful place to just take a boat on. And unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to see the elephants crossing, because sometimes you see them crossing over into Zambia or on their way back, and it's natural, and it's probably been happening for millennia, right? So a beautiful place to end the journey, and potentially a place to start another. I think what we got from this whole thing, at least the idea I got, was I really loved the exchange that we had. You coming and spending and sharing some of your time with us. And I want to figure out a way to do this annually with other guests as well, to say, once a year, this time I'm going to go this way. Who wants to come? And we just do it, right? We'll have to figure out how to do it, but this was a very special one, and I think for us to finish it there was quite dope.
It was dope.
Yeah.
And for me, that was my first time in South Africa. That was my first time in Zimbabwe. And, you went on, I think you went on to Singapore, if I'm not mistaken, but you still curated the rest of my trip. And I ended up back in Johannesburg. And I remember, I went to Johannesburg and Cape Town, and I remember just a full circle moment for me, because, my parents were part of the Free South Africa movement in Chicago. They were even arrested at the consulate because they were part of that whole movement when the actor Danny Glover and African Americans were, actively participating in divesting from apartheid. And for me to actually go and to the home of Winnie Mandela and Nelson Mandela, was so profound to me. And then just to touch the red brick, which has so many meanings in our culture, and to see Soweto, which as a child, I always heard the stories. I remember, just hearing the stories of what happened to the children who ran out and were murdered, gunned down for, standing up and demanding that they, are able to speak their language, And so when you talk about resistance, it was a full circle for me, just to be there and to listen, to breathe, and to meditate, to just, observe and to taste, every meal that everyone prepared for me during that long journey, every bit of tea, you know, every juice that was made, handmade, the ice cream that, everything. And we're starting to learn a lot about West Africa here in the States, through a lot of chefs here. But we haven't even, touched the tip to learn more. And I hope that this, episode creates curiosity, but more so respect and honor for the continent, and particularly to Southern Africa, in the region of Southern Africa, because it's so much to learn. And it's like I said, and like you said, it is a reclaiming, it is a remembering period that we're going through, and just listening to our elders and hoping that we can learn from them and catch up, you know. And
And
yeah.
I'd also say to add something to it, right? I think it's one thing to remember,
Yes.
but it's really important that we add something
Yes.
to it, to keep it alive,
Yes.
as well.
Yes. And then you go, you come home, and then, South Africa's in the news.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what is going on? And to come back from that trip, and then, governments change, politics change, and here we are,
Yeah.
and South Africa is in the news here. It's in the
Yeah.
news. But I want to thank
The
you for,
movie.
yes, it's a movie. I want to thank you so much for joining me on Culture and Flavor. It's been a pleasure as always. And I look forward to trying Baobab coffee and any treats you want to send my way. And hopefully,
I'll
God
just keep
willing,
shipping them.
please do. And hopefully, God willing, be on the next trip with you.
Listen, this is I did say at the beginning you're just getting started, right?
You did.
This we can't really actually say that we've seriously explored it without exploring Lusophone Africa, for instance. So I'm trying to see if maybe a trip through Angola would be the next one, or
Yes, we
something
did
along
do that.
those lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
But look, there's Namibia. There's so much to touch on, and as I said, it's just the beginning. How I'm going to put it together, we'll see. But that's my heart for it, and hopefully through these platforms, more folks can reach out, because it's the exchange that's also important. I learned so much from just what you shared about what's happening in your lens, and the work that's being done that side is very, very inspirational, right? And it's the more we can do more of this, I think there's more understanding, and again an opportunity to document and ensure that we preserve it across oceans and in many more hearts. And so that's a special thing for me, and I'm looking forward to. I'll be in the States a lot more this year as well.
Wonderful.
So I'm going to be dropping by, and hopefully can make it out to New Orleans and thrive a little bit that side.
Yes, you are welcome. You are welcome. And wait, okay, so tell our listeners the Oprah. Well, you're on Oprah's list. Say, tell the folks for the people in the back who didn't hear.
Things happen in the weirdest of ways, right? So we went over to the Atlanta market. And I and Janine, who's helping us, who's heading up our sales in the States in Atlanta, and we had Oprah's people come by and have a look, and it was the most curious thing that happened. And I didn't know who we're talking to. They're like, "Well, this is great branding. It looks amazing." And it's salts. Like you could see just how thrilled they were. And then they were like, do you want a sample or anything or not? And they were like, no, don't worry. We'll call you. We'll find you if we need it. And then, it's so fast forward, I fly back. Our stays, of course, in the States. And I made my way back to Zambia. And I completely forget about it, right? The next thing, I wake up to a WhatsApp message with a screenshot of this email saying, Moom's been selected for Oprah's editors list or some editor's choice or whatnot. I didn't know what to make of it. It was too early in the morning for me to understand what that was. But I did remember finding myself going to the gym and running as hard and as fast as possible so that the sweat and the tears would be indistinguishable, because I didn't know what had just happened, but it felt like we're on the right path. And that's stories of that small idea, just as the source of and it was the Zambezi series that was selected. So I feel like there's a connection that I'm going to take from it. Small ideas into big things. So that's what's happening with that one. I don't know. We'll see when it shows up in the magazine. But I'm just thankful that what we're doing actually it's resonating, and we'll keep doing it.
Thank God. When I look at like our cabinets and everything that's happening with our food systems here in the U.S. and how processed our food is, we need products like that you have. I mean, salt is one of the biggest killers. Sugar, just simple staples are killing us. Oil, we need alternatives, and we need to return to our ancestral diets, because the DNA doesn't go away.
Yeah. It doesn't forget.
It doesn't forget, it never forgets. So
indeed.
But thank you so much, Kudzai. It's such a pleasure to talk to you. And Angola and New Orleans, I'm putting it on my manifestation.
Let the games begin. Let the games begin. It's going to be, it's a years to another year of mischief. But it will happen. I think these are the things that, these are never by accident that we meet, that we exchange, and that we grow from it. And who knows, we'll be speaking Portuguese in a few after a few trips. So I might,
Saudade.
saudade, or I might have a little bit of Creole
Right.
in there too. But either way, something will happen, and I look forward to it.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much. Keep doing the good work. May the ancestors always walk with you and guide
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Take care.
Cheers.
I wake up in the morning and I'm feeling a vibe. Give thanks to the Father, I'm breathing alive.
Culture and Flavor is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org.